Okay, so the second question in this paper is to do with the purpose of a source. It's worth 8 marks, and you shouldn't spend longer than 10 minutes on this question. Now, if you have a look at this one, it says study source B and use your own knowledge. There are a couple of questions on this paper where you can, and the examiner wants you to use your own knowledge. With this question, it's using your own knowledge to help you explain why a source was created. So the question is, why was this photograph published in US newspapers? Use details of the photograph and your own knowledge to explain your answer. Now, if you have a look at the photograph, I know that it's quite small. I will make it slightly bigger while we just have a quick look at it. You can see that it's a photograph published in US national newspapers showing a demonstration which took place shortly before the execution of the Rosenbergs in June 1953. And if you have a look at the source, you can see that there are lots of people there. It looks dark, so it could be the evening. They could have been there all day, which shows their commitment to the Rosenbergs. You can see that there are placards saying that the Rosenbergs are innocent, and then towards the back, it's quite difficult to see, but you can see that they're accusing the government and others of lying and saying that there's no actual evidence for the Rosenbergs to be executed. Now, I'm just going to put this up here. There are some particular things that the examiner is looking for in your answer to this question. Now, the first thing that I'm just going to put down at the bottom are some words that you should and could be using when you are trying to explain the purpose of a source. So show, encourage, persuade, highlight, demonstrate, inform. You could have other words like advertise. I might leave it there for a second, and if I think of some more, I will come back and use those. In terms of own knowledge with this question, we'll start there actually. We've got to think, what own knowledge do we have that helps us understand why this source was published in a US newspaper? We know that the media was quite very anti-McCarthy, but also very anti-Red Scare. We know that June 1953 is significant because it was a month during which there were lots of protests for the Rosenbergs. Let's leave that there for a second. And so what we've got to do in our answer is somehow try to explain why we think this photograph was published using some own knowledge and using some of these key words down at the bottom. I'm not saying that the answer I'm about to type is perfect, but I just want to give you an idea of what you could write in the exam. So this photograph was published in a US newspaper in 1953. And we're going to try and use some of these words. Show their readers that there were lots of people who felt that the Rosenbergs were innocent and who were prepared to campaign for their release. Let's go to our next one. It was also published perhaps to encourage the newspaper's readers to join forces with anti-Red Scare protesters and to stand up against wrongdoings against innocent people. Let's go to another. As it was published in June 1953, and this is where we're going to put a bit of our knowledge in, its purpose may well have been to demonstrate to the public that there were lots of campaigns in support of the Rosenbergs taking place. Let me just quickly make that look better. And to perhaps encourage them to stand up for what was right and to get involved. Finally, and I'm going to try and include another bit of our knowledge here, as we know that the media was incredibly against, actually, McCarthy and his Red Scare tactics, the purpose of this source may have been to, what one haven't we used? We haven't used highlight yet. Highlight some of the atrocious things that were happening as a result of the Red Scare. So really quickly, let me just minimize this. If we have another look through, I'm just going to highlight where I've used some of these techniques. So this photograph was published in a US newspaper in 1953 to show their readers that there were lots of people who felt that the Rosenbergs were innocent and who were prepared to campaign for their release. It was also published perhaps to encourage the newspaper's readers to join forces with anti-Red Scare protesters and to stand up against wrongdoings against innocent people. Stand up is also, I suppose, a bit of a purpose word. As it was published in June 1953, its purpose may well have been to demonstrate to the public that there were lots of campaigns in support of the Rosenbergs taking place and to perhaps encourage them to stand up for what was right. This was a bit of our own knowledge because we showed that we knew that this was the month in which lots of campaigns were taking place. Finally, as we know that the media was against McCarthy and his Red Scare tactics, the purpose of this source may well have been to highlight. So there is our purpose word, and we knew that the media was against McCarthy. That's our own knowledge. And to highlight some of the atrocious things that were happening as a result of the Red Scare. So if you have a look at that, I think that we have explained the purpose of the source using some of the content that we can see within the source and some of our own knowledge, and that perhaps might get somewhere near 8 out of 8 in the exam.